humility and appreciation, and with a great sense that they belong to my ancestors, especially the women in my family. Thank you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. Listen, we have a hot show for you. On many occasions, as you've watched this show, we've discussed perception of the Black community, particularly from a mainstream perspective. Today, to discuss it and the skew that we often face on a daily basis, is the CEO of Associated Black Charities. Chrissy Thornton, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Outstanding. When I saw that piece, I just had to stand up and give you an ovation. I mean, what brought it about? What happened?
So, I have been very careful to help ABC reemerge into something that we could all respect, value, believe is relevant, and that ultimately would be in position to help Black people. I have been very careful to make sure that we lead with the mission work and the programming, that while I understand I'm the face of the organization, that it not be about me specifically, that it be about the work and the impact that we're having. And so to see an uptick of ABC's name in local news reports was concerning for me, specifically when it has been primarily by two outlets who have not, I don't believe, who have not given us an opportunity at balanced and fair reporting. Two outlets who have not highlighted our great work and our reemergence, have not highlighted the programming that we're doing and ABC's transformation and transition since I've been in the seat. But what I saw were two news outlets who took an opportunity to try to place ABC in some confusion, right? The first happened the week before that I didn't respond to, in an article that said that ABC was not available for comment. And that was not true. I was available and made myself available for comment, but it wasn't sensational enough, I guess, to take my remarks and to actually include my remarks. It was easier and I think more chaotic to say that we weren't available. And so I wrote a little email to the writer of that article and the editor of that news outlet. And I said, advise me on how this is accurate when you can see below that I made myself available and you chose not to include my commentary. No response. So I let that slide and let that go. The next week, it was a different story. When I saw the most recent article that prompted me to write a response in my opinion piece, I had a wholly different reaction to it.
Thank you on behalf of the broader community, because when you heard one of us, you heard all of us.
Absolutely.
Whether we live in Owings Mills or whether we live in McCullough Homes, whether we make $100,000, $150,000 a year, or whether we get government assistance, this is one community. And too often, Chrissy, I stopped watching television news about 2 months ago. I'm a news person. I have to watch the news, but I've just been so inundated. It's tiring.
It can be, specifically in this region, the greater Baltimore region. And one of the reasons it's so tiring is because I continue to say there is no progress for Baltimore without a focus on Black lives. Why? We make up the majority of the population in Baltimore City. And so when news is biased against Black people, there is no way to display a positive narrative about Baltimore, right? Those two things don't go hand in hand. So if you're committed to negating Black progress in your storytelling, then you also can't tell a story of progress of a city. Which is why we see the news depictions the way they are, that paint the city as one that doesn't have opportunity, that's not thriving, that is, a city in crisis and all of these things. What I will say is that an organization like ABC, and there are many others, are doing great work in this community for Black communities and thereby helping other communities to do better. My concern is that 2 days ago, there was an article about ABC in local news that really focused on what turned out to be a clerical error by the city of Baltimore, something that was an honest mistake that a news media outlet took as a gotcha moment, right? Like they tried to indict us in a gotcha moment, but then didn't even focus on that moment. Instead, they took the opportunity then to dredge ABC's history back into the story. And in that one article, here's what they did. They did not critique the men that run City Hall. They did not critique the city council, the administrators in those offices, the mayor, the comptroller. What they did is they decided to use that moment to indict 4 Black women in that one article. And the two things had nothing to do with one another. So they talked about me in a way that I felt was dismissive and did not give honor to my credibility and my expertise. They brought back commentary about Diane Bell McCoy, who has done so much, not just for ABC, but for Baltimore City, and is extremely well regarded. And by the way, living her best life. Then they conflated ABC with Catherine Pugh, former Mayor Catherine Pugh, with a picture of her standing in front of the ABC logo. And they talked about what, her storied past with the city. Guess what? She's also living her best life, has served her time, and from what I can see is contributing to society. And then they turned to Marilyn Mosby. So in this article about a clerical error made by City Hall, they took the opportunity to indict 4 Black women. And that was when I decided I had had enough and I needed to speak out about it. And I didn't know how to do that because you can't fight large mass media moguls with news against news, right? And so I decided to take my commentary to the streets, and I posted an opinion piece on my LinkedIn page. I have a pretty extensive LinkedIn following, and I just wanted to set the record straight. I want to teach people how to treat ABC and largely how to treat me. And I felt like it had to be done. I stand by it. And not for nothing, I've gotten some really great feedback and support from doing so.
I think I've met you once in person. I believe it was down at the convention center.
Yes. And let's talk about that, Doni, because that's important. That's real. Let me tell you why that's so important. You and I met at the Be More Healthy Expo, which is an event hosted by Fox 45, Sinclair Broadcasting, right, which owns some of the media that I'm referencing. What they did last week was talk about how ABC was serving in the capacity as a fiscal sponsor for these small Black-led, Black-focused organizations that had received funding from the city. What they failed to mention in that same article is that in 2024 and already set for 2025, ABC also serves as the fiscal sponsor for Sinclair Broadcasting's Be More Healthy Expo. See, they don't tell that, right? Like, because that's not sensational enough to share that you're working with our, mid-sized Black organization to support your initiatives and efforts as well in collaboration. So that was just strategically left out of our conversation of how we show up as a fiscal sponsor. And so that tells me that some of these news choices are very intentional in painting Black-led, Black-focused, Black integrated organizations in a way that allows them to define our narrative and not on ABC's watch. I'm with you.
I am so proud of you. Baltimore is the home of segregation, going back to 1910, where Mayor J. Barry Mahul introduced an ordinance on behalf of the very fine residents of Roland Park. Roland Park had just been established right next door to Roland Park. It's just up where you are.
Right where we are. Mm-hmm.
There is a community called Ho's Heights. And it was founded by Grandison Ho, H-O-E, a Black community. And the very fine residents of Roland Park didn't want Blacks to be able to move into their community. So they introduced this ordinance that was ultimately replicated around the city and around the country. They'll never tell you that Blacks lived in Cross Keys in the early 1900s. Or they won't tell you about Morgan Park or Wilson Park, Black communities. They would only have us think that we lived on the alley streets in East Baltimore and West Baltimore. They won't tell you that the Sun paper only apologized to the Black community when the Baltimore Banner came in and bought up all of their reporters. And that's why we must have Black media, because recently the very fine residents of Ho's Heights were attacked again in 2023. The people in Roland Park blocked off their access to Roland Avenue. And we blasted that story. And this, Ms. Chrissy Thornton, is why we do Be More News. And we talked about you last night. It'll be on tonight on WEAA, on Hip Hop Chronicles. WEAA, co-founded by people like Kwesi and Fume. This is why we need the Afro. This is why we need the Baltimore Times. This is why I do Black media. And shame on them, because Diane Bell did not deserve to be slammed. You probably know that's my adopted mother. And shame.
She did not. She absolutely did not. And certainly not in association with the reputation of Associated Black Charities, which, by the way, is very visible. The work we're doing needs no real defense because it's been very visible. It's had extreme impact and it's well received. And so we do have some very much thriving relationships with news outlets like the Afro, like the Baltimore Times and the Banner, and some other news stations who have taken an interest in our work. But how much more impactful would it have been for Baltimore for that story, instead of talking about Healthy Holly, right? That news article, if you wanted to talk about ABC, to talk about the financial health and wellness clinic we're hosting in January for 4 weeks, free of charge in partnership with JP Morgan Chase. How impactful would it have been to tell that story, to create an opportunity for those resources to reach the community, and not to take an opportunity to talk about something that's not relevant? And so I decided, and I hope I'm not coming across angry, because I'm not angry. I am very strategic, and I'm being very intentional about what it means to protect Black people and Black leaders in Baltimore. How much more impactful would it have been to take that opportunity to talk about our work instead of bringing up Healthy Holly? And so what I decided to do, when you want to talk about Healthy Holly, then let's talk about it. And so I wrote my own opinion piece that focused on Healthy Holly. I'm not scared to say those two words together. They don't reflect the modern day reputation, mission, focus, or work of Associated Black Charities. And we're going to leave that in the past where it belongs.
And they never did. And if they really want to talk about Diane Bell, talk about how she managed a $100 million federally funded empowerment zone with zero scandal. And you want to talk about Catherine Pugh, and talk about Ed Norris, the police commissioner, who now has a radio show and gone on to do other things. Talk about the things, you know what? This is what I was talking about last night. I'm coming home at the corner of North and Mount Royal, minding my own business. And a Caucasian brother comes up to my car after dark. Oh my God. But I didn't panic. I didn't say, oh, I thought my life was threatened. I didn't do to him like they did our Black squeegee kids, which was on the news every night. Power to the squeegee kids, by the way. Big ups to Brandon Scott, because you don't hear a peep about the squeegee kids today. You don't hear "thank you, mascot." You don't hear that.
No, no.
But the white guy, the white lady, she came up very close to my car, and oh my God, I felt a little threatened. Although I'm from North Avenue, and that really
You felt threatened.
But I'm just saying.
Yes, absolutely. I get exactly what you're saying.
There's a double standard.
There is a double standard, right? And you know, we have to be willing to speak out on them and about them. And I know that some leaders are in positions where they may not have what I'll call privilege to speak as unapologetically as I do. I see one of my board members is watching, and I do. I have the support of a reputable, credible board of directors. The Black Leadership Circle cares about the work of ABC, cares about what's happening in local and regional media as it relates to Black leadership. We will not stand by in this next, season and watch media outlets castrate us, our authority and our expertise and all of those things without responding to it. And so it's okay if that's what you're going to do, but you're setting the stage for how we will show up in support of one another. And that's the difference.
Byron, check your email. We'd love to get, Byron is a regular on this show. I got to tell you, when I think of the fact, Miss Chrissy Thornton, we live in an era where we have a Black governor, a Black attorney general, a Black treasurer, a Black speaker of the House.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the city of Baltimore, a Black mayor, Black comptroller, Black state's attorney. We have more political power than ever before. But I need our Black leaders to know they're not there to look cute. We put them there for this very reason. And so we commend you for standing up and showing, in many cases, showing some men how to stand.
That was the easy part, right? It's a sustainability of accountability.
Oh, we got some poo butt men in our community.
Oh no.
We got some poo butts. We live in Orange Mills now. We live in, Severna Park, but we work in Baltimore. But if they walk down North Avenue, they get got.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for the work in our communities. Thank you for looking out for the Black butterfly.
Of course.
East Baltimore, West Baltimore, Cherry Hill, Park Heights. Thank you for not being afraid of our community.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. ABC has committed over the past 2 years to be in community with Black people. And that means that we are in all communities, right? Like we've showed up in most neighborhoods throughout the city. We ventured into the county. We actually have communities in Howard County and Anne Arundel County inviting us to come in, to convene conversations, to bring our resources. It's important to us to leverage our membership in the Black community. We're not an organization that cares about Black people because it's trendy. We're not an organization that cares about Black people because it's fundable. We are in relationship with Black people. We're members of the community. We have membership. And so we're leveraging that by making sure that we are amplifying the voices of all Black people and not further segregating our own community.
One of the biggest challenges we have in our community from a macro perspective is mass incarceration. Mm-hmm. America has 5% of the world's population, yet we have 25% of the incarcerated persons. 40% of Black men, Black women are the fastest growing demographic. Mm-hmm. With that backdrop, I heard a man who was formerly incarcerated say that the problem, this was down at War Memorial Building, the problem in the community is that the people at the top of the ship are not talking to the people at the bottom of the ship. And the people at the bottom of the ship are not talking to the people at the top of the ship. It happens around election time. But after the election, sometimes we don't see these leaders again for 3 years. Mm-hmm. When I look at North Avenue, when I look at West North Avenue, everybody sees the $28 million that Governor Westmore put into the West North Avenue Development Authority. Chad Williams, executive director over there. But nobody will tell you, Chrissy Thornton, that it was the Republicans who actually established the authority.
Mm-hmm.
Or in the previous Republican administration, the first in 36 years, no one will tell you that Governor Bob Ehrlich, and I'm not trying to get you in any political, I'm just painting the picture.
I'm not letting you drag me into it, but I am listening.
The 2002 Republican, a spear thrower for Newt Gingrich. That's what one of my elders called Bob Ehrlich. He put more money into Coppin State than all of the governors combined. Now Coppin's campus has expanded north to Gwynns Falls, south to Baker Street. We have a problem thinking for ourselves. Baltimore, Prince George's, that political power alone can sway any election in Maryland. You saw also Brooks wax David Trone with $60 million. How can we better come together as a community, and not only just from a political standpoint, but start using our political power to leverage more for East Baltimore Development Authority, for a Park Heights Development Authority. We see all of these monies coming in, racetrack impact funds for Park Heights, and then we want to go out to the Preakness and sip on black-eyed Susans and dresses and seersucker suits. But we forget. We get a slice of watermelon, a drumstick, and then we forget of the work that we need to do. How do we come together, Chrissy Thornton?
So it's interesting. I was having a conversation with another activist and advocacy leader last week. And one of the points he made was that there was a period of time where all Black people lived in the same communities, where it didn't matter if you were a doctor, a lawyer, a neurosurgeon, whatever you were, you still lived in the community with people who were in the middle class, people who were low-wage workers. You all lived in the same community, thereby providing representation, providing hope, providing, a lens into what it means to be successful. When we started to have division, right? Like there's where the classism shows up, and we have separations and divides in our community. The other reason why we can't, in my opinion, work as harmoniously as we should is because there's just so much competition. And there's this feeling that if I do well, or if I want to do well, I have to make sure you don't do well, right? Like, so we're not leveraging one another. Instead, we're competing against one another for the slim pickings that are available to all of us. So one of the ways ABC is stepping into this work is we are working collaboratively with other grassroots organizations to establish something called an Agenda for Black Progress in Baltimore. We plan to release this in 2025. And it has two focuses. One layer focuses external issues in Black communities that we want to hold civic, government, organizations, leadership accountable for these areas that of focus for Black people, including things like criminal justice reform and reparations and educational inequality and all of those things. The other side of this agenda really focuses on the self-determination of our own community. It's not the bootstraps conversation, but it is the conversation where we talk about having everything we need within our own communities to do better, to work well together, and to make sure that we all thrive together. And what does that look like? So we've identified a need for more intergenerational communication, right? Like there's no mantle passing that's happening. And we have young people with their own ideologies, and we have more seasoned people, and they can't talk to one another. They don't even speak the same language within our community. So how can ABC and other organizations step in? What does it look like to empower our faith community? Where are the faith community leaders in the civil rights work that we need done, right? And those who are doing it in silo and not in collaboration. What does it mean to reinvigorate the work from the faith community and put them back in their rightful place as leaders in some of this activism work that we're doing? And then a whole other host of other ways that we need to hold our own community, our own selves independently accountable. But ABC is really stepping into this work in the coming year. And I think you'll hear a lot more from us that gives you faith that we care and we're on the trajectory to help our communities do better.
I am proud of you.
Thank you.
I am proud. I love to see a fighter. There was a pastor here. He's long gone. His name was Reverend Wright. And he said, if you see a good fight, get in it.
I like that kind of thought.
I agree with you that we have been MIA. It's like after integration, we've been moving out to Towson and Essex and Harford County for the past 50, 60 years. We've been moving out to Woodlawn, Randallstown, and Owens Mills. All of my family lives out there, so I can say Hoodlawn, Vandalstown, and owing my arm and my leg Mills. And I'm fine with the bunny rabbits, the deer, and the foxes. But for those who still live around north in Pulaski and north in Greenmount, we are still interconnected. These vacant houses that are accumulating are not by happenstance. There are people whose mother, whose grandmother used to live on Carrollton Avenue, and then they died. And then there was no trust or there was no transfer of property. And then some of our grandchildren may have become a little entitled. Oh, no, I don't go down to North Avenue. I heard it in my own family. I know how I go. I'm not taking him home. We got to overcome that because our struggle is the same.
Yes.
You talked about the black church. Even the church moved uptown. Jesus then left Pennsylvania Avenue, it seems. But he's still
there. He's still there. We just he's still there. But you're absolutely right. This notion of what it means to make it as a Black person, and to take our focus off the fact that I tell people that I don't care what your net worth is, how much wealth you've accumulated, how many accolades you have. The question is, if the police pull you over, is there just as much chance that you're going to face brutality as the next person? Yes. And so that needs to be humbling. One of the things for me is consistently focusing on the commonality we share, right? Like the rich culture we share, the lived experiences we share that should create bonds for us. It cannot be an us and them in our own community. That won't work. And they leverage that. When I say they, the power structures, right? Like those who prescribe to or to subscribe to white supremacy, right? We cannot fall prey to believing our proximity to whiteness makes us less Black, right? Or better Black people, or whatever the case is. And so we're really working on what it means to unite our community, to not leave people behind. If we can't do it in an ecosystem where we do have all of those Black leaders in place, in decision-making seats, if we can't do it now, when will we be able to do it? When will we be able? Yes, exactly. When will we be able to do it? So we have to call for accountability. We have to be accountable ourselves. That's what the organization is seeking to do. And that is why we cannot have a healthy Holly distraction, right? And I am committed to calling it out, not sometimes, not here and there, but every time. We will not be castrated. I know that's a strong word, and I'm using it intentionally. We will not be dismissed. We will not have our narrative be that we are less qualified or less worthy of respectful coverage, of respectful storytelling. We will not. And we're going to band together and look at what it means to have trusted and reliable news and media sources for the Black community. And those who care about Black causes and advancing our stories and being respectful of who we are in our lived experience will benefit from doing so. And those who don't will have to be called out. Now, does my little article on LinkedIn make a huge difference? I don't know, but it was a start.
Yes.
It was a start.
I love writers. As a news editor for the past 25, 30 years, I love writers. Honestly, if the KKK sent me an editorial and it was well written, I would publish it because I love writers that much. But I know that we can write. So when I saw the piece, I'm like, uh-oh. I've been trying to be cool lately. I've been trying to take a different approach. But you know what? Sometimes you just can't. You have to take a stance. And let me tell you, Chrissy Thornton, Harriet Tubman would be proud of you. The native Marylander from the Eastern Shore. So would Frederick Douglass. They would be proud of you. And we have to start, you know what? We have to start reading more about our history because we've forgotten who we are. We think just because we moved to Randallstown and we shop at the King of Prussia, we don't go to Old Town Mall like our grandmother did. We have kind of forgotten our history. We've forgotten about the Goon Squad, Reverend Marion Bascom and Reverend Vernon Dobson and Gus Adair and Pat Scott and those people who took the stance so that we could get our first black citywide official, Judge Joe Howard. And then we let Fox, I'm going to call him out, trick some black leaders into saying, oh, you need term limits now. Hold up. Wait a minute. It took us all this time to accumulate this political status, and now you're telling us we can only stay there a short period of time? We got to put on our thinking cap. Remember they told us that in the second grade? Put on your thinking caps, boys and girls.
Well, I think as we go into this new year, new political leadership, everyone is feeling the frustration of election outcomes. Everyone is feeling fearful of what's happening. And I think people are starting already to find out, right? Like we're already seeing things that are starting to unravel.
Don't get rid of the post office.
I saw that yesterday. What I've been telling people, to people's dismay and shock, is that for Black people, like we're not all that scared and fearful. Why? Because this is how we've been living anyway, right? Like we've been living in a world where structural racism has impacted every ounce of our being and how we journey through life. Will there be more hate crimes? Absolutely. Will there be, more things that are harmful to our community? Absolutely. But the great thing about Black people is that you've built us after 400 years of oppression to be very resilient. Who I'm worried about are those other communities, right? Like who haven't had to face what it means to lose freedoms or to lose family members or to lose marriages or to lose, all the things that we've navigated.
Or to lose their food stamps.
To lose their health insurance, right? Like one of the things someone said to me the other day, they were like, make room for your mama. Because she ain't gonna be able to live on her own anymore, right? Like when she loses her Social Security check. I think other communities are going to be hard pressed to manage emotionally and, just literally to manage life amidst all of these changes. I see our community, if we position ourselves correctly, becoming stronger, more freedom fighting, stronger advocates. Now's the time to speak out. We may not cower during this time where everything that has been hard fought for our communities is in jeopardy. And so I'm going to encourage other Black leaders, other Black people, Black organizations, Black educational institutions. Let's speak out together. My one little voice is one thing, but when we amplify it by unifying and speaking in a louder voice, it's going to make a bigger change and ripple in what we're able to achieve, in the foreseeable future. So that's how I would encourage others.
Chrissy Thornton, I have a dream. I have a dream that Associated Black Charities and the Greater Baltimore Urban League,
yes,
and the NAACP and the leaders of these organizations in 2025 will use their collective power and make a difference collectively. And I will be there cheering you on because you are the leader. You have stepped out there on faith. And I'm with you. That's all I needed. I get tired of being out there by myself. I get tired of punching all the beers outside this damn head.
Let's go. Now, I never said I was going to be the most popular person, but you never have to worry about wondering what I'm going to think. I'm going to lead the organization from a position of assertiveness and intentionality. We're going to be strategic. Like, my oldest son, who's 25, he said, you should be more like 2008 Obama or Martin Luther King. I said, no, son, I'm Al Sharpton. And see, that's what you didn't know you were getting when you got me, but that's where we are. And so we're going to bust down doors unapologetically. I have my footing under me now at this organization. We know what we stand to improve for our communities, and we're not going to let anybody jeopardize that.
I encourage the others to step up, including the Black church. See,
yes,
we've gotten comfortable. I like Porsches.
Uh-oh.
I like, Abingdon in Harford County. We like Columbia. We like the nicer thing. We like Woodmore down in Prince George's County, but we also like fighters.
Yes.
We
So
can't
we have our own fighter, just joined our board, very new to our board, Reverend Robert Turner, pastor of the Empowerment Temple. He is a old school civil rights activist, and he has honestly motivated me just to do more. And he has committed himself to help us gather faith leaders in the work. And he'll be, in the forefront of that. And we're very grateful to have those kind of partnerships.
And we need your son's generation, my son's generation.
We do.
I'm 59. I know I better pass the ball and help empower the next generation. And I'm saying it's not you, but some of us don't know when to get out the way.
Uh-oh. You know why? I think because we talked about this, because we're really focused in 2025 on what it means to convene intergenerationally in our community. It is because we haven't achieved the progress. Like my generation, we haven't achieved the progress we want to see, we intended to see. And so that makes us reticent to pass the baton, but we can't hold on to it. We can't be selfish, in our quest for leadership. We have to figure out how to collaborate with that generation. And the first way to do that is to figure out how to talk to them. We convened a community conversation, and we had an older, more seasoned gentleman, and we had a 23-year-old who was very passionate. And the younger person used the word hood. And the seasoned gentleman was like, I don't live in no hood. I live in the community. And he was very passionate too. But the younger person used the word hood as a term of endearment and familiarity and comfort. It wasn't an assault, right? And so if we can't even get past our vernacular and how we refer to things and have commonality there, then we can't communicate and we can't work together. So those are some things that we have to be very intentional about. Like while the world is falling apart under this new leadership, Black people need to come use this time to focus on ourselves. Like as people are saying, we're going to be minding our Black business. That's exactly what we need to be doing during this time, to pull ourselves into position to do the things that we need to do.
I challenged our fraternities to step up. I challenge our sororities to step up. Voting empowerment sessions are nice, but we need to have some meetings, some backdoor meetings, some closed door meetings. We need to take some people to the woodshed. We need to connect Randallstown to Sandtown because they're only 8 miles apart and very related. We need to connect Baltimore to Howard County to Prince George's County. And I'll tell you something else. As you talked about the elder and the young person speaking different languages, I hear often people saying African people this, African people that. And sometimes I hear Africans saying African Americans this, African Americans that, painting a wide brush. Well, from an African American perspective, how many of us actually know that there are 54 countries in Africa? How many of us actually know that Nigeria is the most populated with over 200 million? And that you got the Igbo, the Yoruba, the Edo, the Eka, and the Hausa all in one community. And that's just the start. How many of us know about the difference between South Africa and, say, Egypt in North Africa? How many of us know that they are still our brothers? That we are the modern day Joseph, sold into slavery, but went back to feed our brothers? And then how many of the Africans actually have taken the time to read about a El Hajj Malik El Shabazz? So we can't let mainstream media tell us who our brother is, who our sister is.
No, we have to start to build the bridges. Now, what I will say, I have some strong opinions. What I will say is that those of us who are descendants of people who came through the diaspora, right, who have the lived experience of American slavery, our experiences are different in relationship to white supremacy, right? They just are. But that does not mean, as you've stated, that we cannot convene with our African brothers and sisters, convene with our Caribbean brothers and sisters to understand that today our experiences are the same, right? Our dangers, the lack of safety, the lack of opportunity are the same. And so the more we can do to convene and work together is what we're going to have to do to make progress.
Can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know?
Yeah, I love it. And I love someone said in the comments the results of the election. I've really been thinking about this. This whole like minding our Black business and using this time, yes, to build our collective power. This is our moment to do that. So for those that don't know, I'm not originally from Baltimore, which was a little bit of an indictment against me when I took over at ABC. People are like, she didn't go to Poly or City and she's not from Baltimore.
You're going to get hazed. We understand that.
However, I moved to Baltimore when I was 17 years old. Next week, I will be 49 years old. So what does that tell you? I have lived every moment of my adult life in Baltimore, right? I've been here for 32 years.
Can you make a crab cake?
Yeah, you know what? I don't do a whole lot of cooking. I'm more like for the streets and advocacy, but I probably could make a crab cake, right?
Okay.
But what I will tell you is I'm originally from New York, right? I grew up in New York in the 80s and the early 90s. And that means that I was in New York for Howard Beach. I was in New York for the Central Park Five. That's why I talk about, sitting at the feet of Al Sharpton. I was a few years younger than her, but I went to the same high school, one of the same high schools, because she went to two high schools that Tawana Brawley attended. And so some people are like, how did she get involved in this work? She's suddenly become an equity advocate. No, like this is like heart work for me that I have embraced for my entire life. I left New York to come to Baltimore to attend Morgan State University, which in many ways changed my life, changed my perspective, put me in this all Black city because I had moved from New York City, originally from the Bronx, to the Mid-Hudson Valley. I went to a high school with 1,600 students and only 34 of us were of color, right? And so I had a very vastly different experience, being a true minority in that setting and coming to Baltimore and being on the campus of Morgan State University and embracing Baltimore and embracing what it means to see Black excellence all around you, but also to see and experience and feel the disparity. And so my viewpoints are rooted in all of that background. I consider it a blessing to lead Associated Black Charities. By no means has it been easy to pick up the reins of this organization, especially in this season, this post-George Floyd season. By no means has it been easy to get funding, right? Like as you're hearing about equity and DEI going away and all of that kind of stuff, every dollar we raise for our organization to do the mission work is hard fought, hard gained. And not for nothing, ABC will be 40 years old in 2025, and we don't own anything, right? Like we haven't had the same opportunities to build endowments and assets and community funds like some of our counterparts. And so this year we endeavored into a process that looked at what would it mean for ABC to be able to acquire a building from the city, to renovate it, and to use it not just for our organization's headquarters, but to use it to empower other organizations like ours, Black-led, Black integrated, Black governed, which makes a difference, right? Because we have Black-led organizations that don't commit their mission work to Black communities, but so that we can empower not just ABC in ownership, but other organizations. And we've been in that process all year, right? Like the bureaucracy of that process is pretty outrageous, right? Like the process is now on hold, and we're just faithful that what God has for us will be for us as an organization. When it's time for us to make those kind of moves, that the opportunity will present itself before us. But even in that process, we've had to face competition within our community. We've had to face people who, don't see the benefit of ABC taking its rightful place as an anchor institution in Baltimore, like a true anchor institution in Baltimore. We're 40 years old, right? And we've learned lessons from the Associated, from the Jewish community, and from Catholic Charities and the Archdiocese and all of these different entities. When will ABC have the level of support, not just from Black people? When will we have the level of community support to be able to take our rightful place to help advance Baltimore? Because I repeat, there will be no advancing of Baltimore City without a focus on Black lives. It won't happen.
I'm thinking about Ed Gainey. I had the opportunity Friday to watch a dear special woman in my life graduate with a PhD from Morgan State University. But I'll be graduating with my master's in May.
Okay.
But to be in the Hill Field House and to see 450 Black doctoral, master's, and bachelor candidates, to see the Board of Regents. And I've seen Shalonda Stokes in a lot of outfits, but to see her donning her Morgan State University features robe, to see Kwesi, but then to hear Ed Gainey, the mayor of Pittsburgh, lay it down. And he didn't speak too erudite. He spoke the language of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how important Morgan is. It's more than just the money for the new building. It's what you get deep down inside. I didn't see excuses that day on Friday. I didn't see people saying, oh, I got to get Professor so-and-so this, or Morgan owes me this, or I saw 450 soldiers walk that stage. God, it was inspiring. And to hear Ed Gainey, he's the mayor of Pittsburgh, for those that don't know. How do we get Morgan and Coppin, and let's not forget the oldest HBCU, Bowie, and the University of Maryland Eastern Shore? How do we get chapters of ABC, Associated Black Charities, on these campuses? How do we bring together a Dr. Wilson, a Dr. Jenkins, a Dr. Bro? I love me some Dr. Bro down at Bowie. And the president, I don't know the name offhand, of Eastern Shore. How do we bring them together with these mega preachers like Walter Scott Thomas and Harold Carter Jr. and Wes Moore and Brandon Scott and the young man that wants to be the mayor down in Anne Arundel County, the big bolo police officer looking guy? How do we start using the preachers, the lawyers, the educators, the business community, because they're all dying off? And if we don't see people like Mark Morial passing the ball after 20 years, then we fall into this mindset that it's me, myself, and I.
So because there's not balanced reporting, a lot of times we don't know about the progress that's happening. So a couple of things. ABC has a robust partnership with Dr. Jenkins over at Coppin. We've collaborated on some things and want to do more. He's been a great supporter. I currently sit on the advisory council of the Liberal Arts College under Dr. Ngom at Morgan State University, my alma mater. So there's opportunity to grow there.
Dr. Ngom?
Mm-hmm.
Did he make you speak Spanish?
First of all, I speak fluent Spanish, which I try not to tell people because I don't want to translate. And
Tell Dr. Ngom hello for me. Oh my goodness.
And it's a full circle moment for me because he was my Spanish professor when I first got to Morgan, and now I get to
say he's not easy.
He was not easy, but always very pleasant and inspirational to me. So we have those little partnerships. Dr. Andre Bundley, who runs the Mayor's Office of African American Male Engagement, is also outside of that initiative doing a lot to convene Black men in Baltimore. But we don't hear about that. He's convening Black men across sectors, in the faith community, in education, across industries, and doing a great job at that. But that's not the story that the media is going to tell, right? Like
we should have been there. That's why.
Oh, Lord. Well, but he's still doing the good work, and that's what matters, right? Like he didn't need that title to do the good work, and we appreciate that.
That's true.
But, if we listen to what they tell us about ourselves, then we'll believe that our children are derelict, that we can't get along, that there's no progress happening, there's no collaboration happening. You mentioned earlier you wanted to see ABC work with the NAACP and the Urban League. Well, we convened 2 years ago something called the Black Racial Equity Organization Summit, right? Where we brought together the leaders of those organizations, of leaders of A Beautiful Struggle, of ACLU Maryland, and a lot of grassroots organizations focus on racial equity so that we could work together. But when we send the press release out for that, it's only going to be the Afro and the Banner and the Times that pick up the story, while other outlets choose to perpetuate a narrative that is no longer relevant. And so the biggest thing for Black communities is for us to stop allowing these outlets to tell us who we are?
It's hard because I've been doing Be More News for 22 years. And a lot of times we are quick to follow what the other guys are saying. And that's why we do work so hard to use radio, to use streaming, to use emails, newsletters. But we promise, Miss Chrissy Thornton, you will know BeMoreNews.com is on your side, and you keep fighting, and we're going to find other like-minded leaders up and down, not just in Baltimore. I mean, you mentioned you're from New York, and you mentioned Al Sharpton. I'm thinking about the brother from the Central Park Five.
Yusuf Salam.
Brother Salam.
Yes.
Who is now a council person.
Yes,
See,
in Harlem.
Ed Norris can be police commissioner, go to jail and get a radio show. But like you say, the mainstream media won't talk about Yusuf Salam, falsely accused by this person that's going into the White House, but now he's a city council person for New York City.
That story is doesn't feed into the design that keeps us oppressed. And so until we start supporting our own news media outlets and those who may not be Black run and operated, but who care about our representation, until we start sourcing our storytelling within our own community, we're going to continue to be who they say we are.
I hope that you can join us on January the 4th. And if you like, we'll even give you a room for some special remarks. We're having a Black Wall Street New Year Empowerment Summit. As a matter of fact, what are you doing on January the 4th?
I don't know, but I'm getting ready to look because that sounds very exciting to me.
Well, we want to give you a Black Wall Street Award. Can we give you a Black Wall Street Award? You can
give me all the awards you want to give me, but I am, a believer in entrepreneurship, and that sounds like my kind of party.
Well, it's 12 noon. That's when the awards are, and we're going to have a number of people from up and down. Oh, we've got a special announcement. Are you ready? You're not ready.
Goodness. My boy, how you get on my interview, Byron?
He's been stalking us.
No, this is our board member, Byron. He has been extremely supportive of me, of ABC's transformation.
No, this guy's the next mayor of Baltimore.
He don't even live in Maryland. I don't think he qualifies.
I do not qualify.
Yes, he counts money. We need people to count. Byron, welcome back. How you doing?
Hey, listen, I had to jump on here. This has been such a beautiful conversation, and the fact that we have the combination of the two you have in this conversation being true Black institutions and having the right type of conversation, addressing falsehoods and all the craziness that these folks are trying to do in terms of not making sure, or more so trying to cover over the great work that Associated Black Charities is doing. This is just a beautiful day. Chrissy, I really wanted I didn't want to jump on earlier, Doni, because I want people to see just how beautiful of a sister that she is. And not only I'm talking about just outwardly, but inwardly, and how she understands the work that we're trying to do here.
I don't do it alone, right?
Yeah,
we do it together.
These are serious times, and we need serious people. And just the combination of hearing this conversation and knowing what's to come. She gave you kind of a little taste of what's to come with Associated Black Charities and how the ecosystem will continue to be organized and work together and support each other. This is the beginning. And again, I think because we're moving into this time period where white supremacy is really trying to raise its head to the next level, we understand what it takes to be a segregated society. We have that history. A lot of the other folks don't. And we're going to be in a position, I think, going forward, if we continue this type of conversation and the move that we're doing here, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. So just want to jump on.
No, don't go yet, because while we have the platform, let's talk about economic empowerment, which is something that we work on together. Because one of the things ABC has always been interested in, always in the past 2 years, is developing a community impact fund. Like, what does it mean to circulate Black dollars through a Black organization, right? 100% committed 100% of the time to Black causes and Black community. And we've had difficulty finding a financial institution that's willing to work with us. Why? Because we don't have $5 million in assets, which is the threshold. So this is how the cycle of not being able to participate continues, right? And so Black dollars then thereby cycle through organizations that are not 100% dedicated to Black causes. And then that's how they're able to build residual income, sustainability, and all the things that we haven't had that opportunity to do. So since we're on here and we're together, this is our call to action, right? You got a fund, a financial institution, care about equity, you care about progress, because we know the progress in the Black community. Ultimately, we talk about education, housing, health, criminal justice, but we all know that it's going to come through wealth building, right? Sure. Economic empowerment. And until we can wrap our arms around the opportunity of that, we will always be in a cycle of trying to fight to do better in our communities. Right, Byron?
Couldn't say it any better.
So is there a particular bank that we need to lift up? Because as we were putting together this empowerment summit, I was looking for a bank sponsor. We have other sponsors, and I couldn't really decide. Do I go to Harbor Bank, where Tiana Lawson used to work, or do I go over here to Fulton Bank? And I will tell you, Fulton Bank stepped up. Now, I got to tell you also, when we first got started, Harbor Bank was our primary sponsor years ago. We're talking about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
But time moves on. Joe Haskins moved on. We need new commitments. And these people want to come into our communities. They want to speak at our events. I believe in doing a stick up, Chrissy Thornton. What you going to do for my people?
Well, that's true, right? Like that's a form of forced reparations in and of itself. And ABC has very vibrant relationships with a number of financial institutions, all of them. But we bank with Harbor Bank, right? Because we believe in not only did Haskins was one of the founding members of ABC, but we also believe in what it means to support our own community in that way. But we have vibrant relationships with a lot of financial institutions, and all we need is one. All we need is one to say yes. Most of them are focused on Black communities, Black wealth, but Black affluence, right? What does it look like to create a community fund that's not focused on leveraging Black affluence, but instead leveraging wealth generation, right? Like at a grassroots, more like, smaller investment level. Right? Because
I'm sorry.
With people
have we pulled up Lamar Jackson yet? Have we talked to Tank Davis? I mean, we need, Tank Davis gym is just around the corner from where I live, right on Pennsylvania Avenue. Lamar, everybody got the number 8 jersey. Can we get Lamar on the phone? Lamar Jackson.
I would say done it.
Cal Ripken money. Cal Ripken just up the road in Aberdeen. Eddie Brown, he manages billions.
Listen, let me say it like this. Don, let me say it like this. I think it's important to everybody that you've mentioned, from Harbor Bank to all of the professional athletes and everybody else. It's important to reach out to them because what's important to know is that these guys are great at what they do, but they may not be great at knowing and connecting the way we're connecting right now. And again, when we think about the media, who's speaking the loudest? So Baltimore Sun speaking the loudest, if the Banner speaking the loudest, and they may take that information, which is why I think it was so important that Chrissy did what she did today in communicating, how the attacks, if you will. It's important for us to reach out to them directly, to let them know exactly what's going on, why they should support. And I would say to you, especially in the case of institutions like Harbor Bank, give those folks a call. Call them directly and say, this is what we're doing. This is why you should support. Here's how it's going to benefit your bottom line, and go from there. So don't wait for them to call you. You call them, because I think you'll see that there's some folks over there who also care about the plight of Black people and the progress of Black economics in this area. So definitely.
Chrissy Thornton, any final thoughts? And thank you for joining us. Thank you for this revolutionary conversation. It is so refreshing to our soul, especially as we go into the holiday season. We have $1.6 trillion in annual disposable income. That money does not circulate in our community longer than 5 or 6 hours, but we're quick to go to the Porsche dealer, and I love a Porsche. However, I like owning the block too, like Dr. Vanya Pettigrew.
Yes, Vanya.
We like to own the block.
Well, on that, we have to be willing to bring each other in on opportunities, right? Like I might not be able to own the block by myself, but me and 10 of my closest friends might be able to make a dent in it. And we have to, when opportunities arise, we have to think broadly about how to improve outcomes for our community and not just ourselves, right? Like this is not a season of selfishness for Black people. This is our time to build cooperative economics. It's our time to work collaboratively. It's our time to put ourselves in position, right? So that I've said before, while the political landscape does what it does, this is our opportunity behind the scenes to do what we can do as a community. But back to why I was here and the op-ed that I wrote about news media outlets, just in general, like, you know, I like the colloquialism, like, you know, don't come for me unless I send for you, right? This is not a season to be dismissive of Black people. This is not the season to be dismissive of Black women. We are no longer going to show up and respond in the passive ways that we have previously, right? Like our community has been resilient. We've fought battles for generations and we are tired. And so the warning is when you come for us, we are going to start to respond in turn. We're going to, and as respectfully as we can, tell you how to treat us, tell you how to talk about us, tell you how to regard our organizations, and our communities are going to be better for it. So I would encourage anyone who's watching this not to think I'm some radical, angry Black woman who didn't know how to censor herself. Just know that I am a rightfully angry Black woman who's had enough and who will put myself on the line for not just myself and my own value, but the value of other Black people. And I'm not going to do it some of the time. I'm going to do it every time.
As you can hear, that's my security guard, Chrissy Thornton. We thank you so much for joining us. 410-659-0000. Website is abc-md.org.
AssociatedBlackCharities.org.
AssociatedBlackCharities.org. Save the date. I will get you the details for January the 4th. We'll be at the Sankofa Children's Museum of African Cultures, and we will be recognizing you with the Joe Mann's Black Wall Street Awards. Byron Dees, thank you for your support of this network. Good morning, world.